Well, what's up, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram audience? This is Rudy Nieto here. I'm the CEO of Mavsign, and welcome to our second ever Fraudcast. Joining with me is my good friend and partner, Doug Horner, General Sales Manager of Mercedes-Benz of North Olmsted in Ohio. Many of you know him as BenzsandBowties. So, Doug, take a moment to say hello.
Hey, Rudy, thanks for having me, and happy to be here, and always appreciate the relationship with you and Mavsign.
Great. Well, we'll start off with, I took a blast from the past on our intro song. I might be a couple years older than you, but when you heard "See You at the Crossroads" and we're getting ready to talk about fraud, kind of what memories did that bring back from the 90s?
Oh, Bone Thugs takes me back to high school and college. I mean, as you may know, they're from Cleveland, right? So here in Cleveland, we have a unique appreciation for Bone Thugs.
There you go. Man, you got to know your audience, right? So,
that's right.
I always like to have probably not a spirit animal guy, but I love to have kind of like theme songs for what I'm doing. So when I feel like, all right, we're going to talk about like fighting fraud, beating the bad guys, and all that, I just love the first minute of that song because you just feel like Jack, like you're judgment time's coming and this and that. So hope y'all enjoyed a little tongue-in-cheek moment there. Yeah. So hey, we've been doing business together for a while. You've been in that chair for quite a bit and you've had a ton of success so far. So we're just honored that we get to work with you on a regular basis and continue to be challenged. So today we're going to talk about just how you got to where you are. Maybe I think everybody knows how you got to the bow tie portion, but then we'll go through how you got to where you are, and then we'll look at more what's going on in the market today and maybe where we see fraud going. And the whole purpose of this is we're going to keep it light. We're going to try to have some fun. I've got a couple of funnies for you, and I'm sure they'll be coming back my way. We do have folks monitoring the chat. So if anybody's got good pertinent questions popping up or some good commentary in the middle that might be pertinent, they'll be popping it up on screen for everybody to enjoy. So we got about 26 minutes. Let's get into it. Okay. So Doug, you were one of the first people I met in retail that truly has come to market with a remote first approach, right? So when I first met you, I was like, oh, great, you use Mavsign, but it wasn't just about Mavsign. Like your whole approach is like that every deal could be Mavsign potentially. So just give me some insight on kind of where you started with kind of the old school retailing methodology to what you're doing today and how that's changed the game.
Yeah. Well, my first, let's call it 6 years in the business, I was at dealerships that operate, I think like the majority of dealerships still do, which was your primary focus was on your local market. And outside of that, you really didn't do a whole lot. Maybe you had a super unique used vehicle that from time to time would bring an out-of-state buyer in, but it was heavily focused on just kind of the surrounding areas. And then I remember I didn't work for Mercedes-Benz in North Olmsted until 2016, but in the years up to that, when Mercedes-Benz sends out the ranker reports and you're looking at how are they selling so many cars? Like everybody had all these wild theories and all these shenanigans that must be going on. But I just was always so curious, how is it that they sell so many cars? And then when the opportunity came to work here and also move back to Cleveland, where I'm from originally, it was a no-brainer. I was like, I got to get my foot in the door. I love the brand. Obviously, I want to be with the brand, but I also would love to work for Mercedes in North Olmsted and figure out firsthand what they do that other dealerships don't do. And what I very quickly learned was that they obviously were hugely focused on the local community and taking care of our local clients, but they were like, hey, we're going to sell cars all over the country and we're going to make connections with people all over the country. And we're going to give them an amazing experience, and then they're going to refer their friends and family. And so it's like you've got just these loyal clients that have been doing business here for years and years and years that have never been here, ever. And they've never maybe met you face to face, but they feel like they're right around the corner. And so that basically what I stepped into was a process that had to be focused on taking care of the person who lives down the street, but also somebody that might live in Miami, Florida, for example. So that's kind of how I got thrust into this. Okay, I get it now. It's like they're trying to sell cars everywhere, not just in their backyard.
Right. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the way that you do pricing and all that is it's the same, no matter where you are. If you for a service in here or not, I think that's, you can speak to that a bit.
Yeah, as far as pricing is concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we always were, we always focused on making sure that everybody got the same experience no matter where they lived. But then in the last year, we really fully committed to, we're going to give our best price up front every time, no matter if you're local or not local. That way, if you want to do business with us, it's going to be transparent. It's going to be easy. If you don't want to come here, that's okay. We've got a process in place for that.
Right. Right. So, I guess I'm curious, how do you feel that that's helped you with some of the disruptors out there, primarily maybe on the more on the pre-owned side, but also in the new, you've got some of the big groups out there that are trying to sell everywhere and sell in your backyard. How has that made an impact for you fighting against them? Do you see that much where you're losing a deal to them?
Well, I think that the biggest disruptors really in the car space are CarMax and Carvana, right? Because they, in the eyes of a lot of car buyers, are not traditional dealerships. They are, but they're not, right? They've branded themselves in a different way. I don't look at any other public or private groups as a disruptor. You know what I mean? Okay. Some of them might have better processes than others, but for us, I look at it like, okay, are you a traditional franchise dealership, or are you some independent third-party dealership that's really making a splash? And I think that CarMax and Carvana are the two that we have to look to get clues on what consumers like from the kind of the anti-traditional car dealership experience.
Yeah, right. So obviously you want to be keeping pace, if not exceeding what they're offering. So what are some things that you do, and obviously I'm going to ask you about how you prevent yourself from getting ripped off, because Carvana and CarMax, I promise you, they have lots of issues there and they have to worry about that too. So what are the ways that you empower your team with either technology or process to allow you to pull that off, and protect your dealership at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we talk about is that whether somebody's walking through the front door, calling from California, saying in an internet lead from wherever, we're going to treat them the same as that person who did walk through the front door, who lives right around the corner, right? We're going to have a conversation with them. We're going to get to know them. We're going to figure out, okay, why are you calling? What problem are you trying to solve? How can we help make that easy for you? And we're not going to give them a different process or experience just because they live somewhere else. And I think there are a lot of content creators now that are on social media, and they will post phone calls of, them calling dealerships around the country attempting to buy cars. And so it's not hard to see what experience people tend to get when they're calling a dealership that isn't local to them. And it's usually, combative, or, hey, you got to be here if you want to get information, that type of thing. We're just like, look, if you don't want to come here, that's okay. Like, we'd love for you to, but it's not a requirement. And that doesn't mean that, I can't give you a price because you're not going to come to the dealership. No, we're going to do our due diligence. We'll get to know you. We'll give you a price. And then if you want to move forward, we'll make it the easiest car you've ever bought. Like, that's what drives us every day.
Gotcha. So what's great to hear is that, like, we haven't even talked about the technology stuff yet. Like, y'all do some things technologically with your DMS, with Mavsign, with some other pieces to really as part of your due diligence. But what I'm hearing is, because of the relationship you're establishing early, right, you're going to know a lot about that. And I think one of the things you mentioned was, even though we do a lot of business together, you're catching a lot of potential issues well before it ever gets to a transactional discussion.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So when it's part of your process every day, you can tell when something seems a little bit off. I mean, not always, right? The people that are committing fraud are getting more and more comfortable and creative, but when this is a part of what you do every day, it's less of a surprise than it might be for dealers that only do it occasionally.
Right. So anyways, I wanted to ask a couple of stories. So there's a couple that I saw a couple of your posts on some deals that you were doing and this and that. So people look to you for advice on, how to buy a Mercedes and what to look out for, whether they buy from you or not. I think that's why you have so many followers. And talk to me about how you handle fraud prevention measures with luxury buyers, VIPs, celebrities, because that can be uncomfortable for the associates, and it could be potentially uncomfortable for those celebrities if it's not discussed right. So what's your approach to how you explain that process? Like, I think you've got a couple of good anecdotes that I've heard you talk about.
Yeah, I mean, again, we want to make sure that we have, ideally, if we can be on some sort of video call with somebody, that's hugely helpful. But we want to have a real conversation with everybody that we're doing business with at some point, even if somebody's preference is to handle it via email or text, that's okay. At some point, we are going to get on the phone with you. And that's a lot of times, I think, and you could probably speak to this better than me, but I think that a lot of people that are trying to commit fraud are going to try to be as hidden as they possibly can be, right? So getting things like, the driver's licenses and insurance information and registration, documents that we need for the process anyway, but getting those upfront and early so that we can look at them and make sure that they're consistent and everything checks out and there's nothing that looks odd. Sometimes that could just also be address verification, right? What's the address that they're providing us? And, it could be as simple as a quick Google search to make sure that there's no funny business there. I mean, we've had times in the past where somebody's reaching out to buy a $200,000 car, and then you put the address in the system and it's a $20,000 house in the middle of nowhere, right? And it's like, okay, well, obviously this is a little bit of a red flag, right? So we just want to get as much information as we can early on, but it's all things that are normal, right? We're not weird about it, right? It's just, hey, you're going to buy a car from us. These are things we need, right?
Yeah. So what do you tell? So, I mean, we actually did an article. We caught a fraud of somebody trying to, I can't remember if it was an A's or a Giants player, but they were trying to steal a car. They looked like one of the MLB players. They talked the dealer into foregoing ID verification and all that because they're like, oh, I'm a VIP. You don't blah, blah, blah. You don't need that. And then, of course, if a salesperson's a fan and it's like a high commission deal, they get googly eyes, right? Like, oh, my goodness. Sure. And so I'm curious, like in that situation with your dealership, how do y'all handle those types where somebody's like, I'm too big of a deal. I don't need to go do that. Check me out kind of thing. You gotta stick to the process. So we're like, look, we can appreciate that and we can respect that and we will be discreet. There are certain things that we need and there are certain processes that we need to follow. And if you're not willing to cooperate, then we just will not be able to help you, unfortunately. Right. Well, I was going to ask you about the one where Ryan Reynolds called to buy a Mercedes. How did that one go down? I mean, I guess I didn't know if he had a U.S. driver's license or if he had to do passport, or I wasn't sure if Trump was revoking passports yet.
Yeah, nothing ever ended up coming from that. So I didn't unfortunately get to speak to Ryan directly, and who knows how legitimate it even was. But it could have been somebody playing a joke on me. Who knows? But it was at least if we had gotten to that point, we have sold plenty of celebrities cars in the past, including lots and lots of athletes. So again, they know we treat them like we would anybody else when it comes to buying a car. Obviously, we love them for who they are and what they do, but there are certain things that we have to do to make sure that you're protected, we're protected, and everything goes smooth.
Yeah, I think people forget part of what we're doing is to protect them. Like it's as much of like the explanation up front, like, hey, I'm not scanning this because I'm trying to get your information into my CRM. Like there's lots of other ways to do that. That's easy enough. It's like, how would you feel if somebody did steal your identity and they were here buying a car right now because maybe we're throwing away sensitive documents in the mail, or, you left your driver's license on a copy machine. Like, so there's that other side of it. I just don't know if dealers always do a great job explaining that and saying, here's why we do it. Right.
No, it's probably fair. I'm sure there are a lot of dealers out there that don't explain their process well enough. And that's why people can be resistant to it. I mean, I remind my team at least once a week that, hey, just because we do this every day, the people that we're talking to do not do it every day. They might do it once every couple of years. Some of them might do it once every 10 or 20 years. So you've got to lay out the process to them so that they understand what we're going to do and why we're going to do it, right? We don't just do things arbitrarily. There's a reason for everything that we do.
Yeah. I always, when I was selling cars, I remembered being willing to go talk about everything on the car and that nobody else would talk about, right? And so I remember getting moms to buy a minivan because apparently nobody else told them that the vans had triple sealed doors, and they were like,
Sure.
well, that makes it quiet. And then they all had it, right? So what are some of your ahas that, when you force this in the process, a consumer you can see the light bulb going on with the consumer where they like something connects that they would have never connected on in a buying process normally?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for us is that and part of this is the social media allowing more people to see it before they even do talk to us. And part of it is just the way we explain it is that we are driven and motivated by giving you an experience that you generally are not getting at most car dealerships. So we're going to walk you through it. There might be a few extra steps that you didn't do in the past, but we're doing it in the interest of making this as easy as possible for you and enjoyable as possible for you, so that when you get to the end of it, you will feel like, wow, that was the easiest car buying experience that I ever had. And when you lay it out for people like that, I would say 95 times out of 100 are like, okay, yeah, I'm here for that. Now, 5% of the time you're going to get people, we call them, every dealership I'm sure has a different percentage, 5%ers, 2%ers, 1%ers, right? People that just, it's in their nature to be a little bit more, like, no, I'm not doing that, or I've never done that, so I'm not going to start now. Look, if you're not going to take my personal check, I'm not buying a car here. It's like, look, again, I get it, but personal checks, there's a lot of check fraud there, right? So I can't take a personal check. And if that's going to prevent you from doing business with us, that's okay. I understand you're not going to hurt my feelings, but I just need to let you know that that's our policy. So if you have one of those people that's like, no, I'm not doing it, then okay, at least we know now in the beginning of the process, and they can go find a dealer that is maybe a little bit more loosey-goosey with the way they do things. But we're not going to take the risk.
Yeah, I actually, several months ago, I actually came to visit your store, and I got to walk around and meet the F&I people and meet the sales associates. And I think what I heard you just say is the total amount of time that they spend buying a car, it may even be longer, right? But because they're actually having more of an experience, and most of that is invested upfront, as opposed to, instead of waiting on F&I, or being in the box for 2 to 3 hours or however long that process takes. Once they say I'm buying, I saw that there's a lot of pretty quick F&I experiences because everything was kind of answered by the time they sat down to go sign.
100%.
And so it was kind of like, it was like an old mantra they first taught me when I was in sales, like, sell on your feet, close on your seat. Don't try to do it the other way, right? A lot of people like to just, just go sell them at the end. And so I think that's an interesting insight, is everybody's talking about like hour or less, in and out, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, hey, y'all have a premium product, right? And it sounds like that experience upstream does a lot of things. It helps you prevent fraud, which is something obviously near and dear to my heart. And it helps you make sure you've got the right kind of buyer. So, it's not pre-qualifying. It's just, you're having a relationship that is going to not just be one transaction, from what you're telling me.
Yeah, I don't want to do business with you one time, right? That's a lot of work to never talk to somebody again. We want ideally not just to do business with you again, but we want to give your friends and family the same experience. So, to your point, like you said, if you're physically here, we can go very fast. We're not going to rush you, but if you want to get this done, if you know what you want and you've picked out the car and et cetera, like, this can be done very quickly. If it's going to be an out-of-state transaction, we can still go quickly. There's just going to be extra steps, Mavsign being one of them, that will add a little bit of time to the process, but what's the word I'm looking for? It's not going to be like a hindrance to you. It's just going to add maybe a day or two to the process so that we can make sure everything is good to go. And then we'll deliver the car right to your driveway. But it'll still be easy, and you can spend your time on more productive things versus arguing back and forth with a dealership that's not really giving you the information that you're asking for.
Yeah, well, and especially with kind of like that set pricing, I mean, the amount of back and forth, you're not wasting your energy on that, which is great. So
it's been very freeing.
So we were talking right at the beginning of the call about, you just had your end of month. We were both, talking about closing out last month. It's kind of like you had a great month, right?
We did.
So congratulations there. And, somebody had asked a question a while back, like, well, hey, do you see, where are you seeing fraud more often, end of month or beginning of month or middle of month or whatever? And I think you have a different answer than most, but I would tell you that we see velocity highly at the end of the month. Part of that is dealer conditioning, and part of that is consumer conditioning. You're like, okay, I'm this close to my number. I don't want to say, we're not talking about punching cars like the old school that you've heard, but people are just rushing to get cars sold, right?
Sure.
And when you rush, you skip steps. So, one thing I was going to add is, I think in general, we do see more fraud, just as it's a numbers game, as the velocity of deals attempted is happening. But you actually had a different answer to that. So,
yeah, I think that, that makes total sense to me, that what you would be seeing is more attempts at fraud towards the end of the month when dealers get busier and they've got more going on. I mean, really, I've always laughed at the whole end of the month thing. To me, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that dealers bring on themselves, right? They perpetuate it to consumers. They then reinforce it that, oh, I'll do something different at the end of the month. Now, for us, when our strategy is that you got the best price up front, unless there has been some sort of market adjustment during the month that makes us want to reevaluate how we have a vehicle price, for example, then there won't be anything different on the last day than on the first day. So we don't allow that kind of to become a problem here, but I'm sure there are dealers out there that, I got to get 2 or 3 more deals in for the end of the month. So you know what, those normal protocols that we would follow, we're going to skip those this time to try to cram
one. Personal check. Personal checks are fine on the last day.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, it's like all the things that you normally do, you're not going to do anymore.
Don't need your ID. We're good.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think for us, when those attempts do happen, they're just sporadic. You know what I mean?
Right.
You never really know. But again, we've gotten very good at sniffing things out. There have definitely been some times where, as we got kind of to the finish line, we realized, okay, hey, something's going on here. And that's, whether that's been the help of a Mavsign notary saying, hey, this person wasn't willing to meet me in person. And, they tried to pull a fast one at the last minute. But we've gotten pretty good at sniffing all of that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, I think you spend, what I hear you talking about is you have so much personal interaction and you're using technology, but there's so much personal interaction all throughout the process. It's great that we become a complementary aspect because we have a person that comes in at the very end in the event, and we can like really belly to belly validate, which helps. But the more people, it's funny how everybody's like, oh, AI, this and that. I'm like,
sure.
I personally believe the bad guys can use AI or using AI more effectively than maybe we are. And, we've heard about deep fakes, right? I made the joke last time about, I think somebody deep faked Marco Rubio and ran the government for a half a day or something with his image and his voice. So, where do you see that going? Like, I love that you have so much investment in people in the process, but where do you see that going with, the tools that the bad guys have and the new strategies that they're adopting? What do you think is next?
Boy, in the last couple months, even the advancements in AI, from whether it's deep fakes or just videos that are fake, I mean, it's getting so real and scary and hard to tell. I think that randomly, actually last night, a post that came across my feed was, here are 10 videos that the internet fell for that are not real. So these are like 10 videos that have gone viral in just the last couple months of fake things, right? And it's like, you would think that that's probably going to become a bigger and bigger problem moving forward. If you can get millions of people on the internet to believe something is real that isn't really happening, then that's going to be a very real thing happening with people trying to buy cars and fake identities. So it's like, we're glad that you get to worry about that more than we do, because it's the landscape, especially with AI, is wild right now.
Yeah, our forensic teams are having to really up their game. I can assure you that. Well, we've got about 4 minutes left, and we can go longer. But I wanted to go ahead and open it up to the group. Any questions? I know we got some folks on the call, and I wanted to see if we had anybody in the group, and we'll give them a chance to pop up some questions.
Sure.
In the chat. I did want to while we were waiting, I did want to ask her a quick question. I see that football in the background.
Oh yeah,
I'm mistaken.
I got
You
two
were
behind me.
You were Ohio State.
Yep. So I went to Ohio State. So that white ball there is signed by Jim Tressel and
Yeah.
Archie Griffin. So Tressel was the coach for most of my childhood and right as I got to Ohio State. And then Archie Griffin, of course, the only two-time Heisman winner in the history of college football. And then this ball here is the great Brian Brennan, who played for the Cleveland Browns. So was a wide receiver in the 80s. And, just kind of like a local hometown hero. And I got these footballs at some charity auctions, just, some silent auctions.
Nice. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't have any autographed balls, but I do believe the last time we played y'all in a national championship game, I think our ball was the one that crossed the goal line more. I'm not sure.
That might be true.
But I don't know. We'll see. I think y'all might have us this year. Big that conference seems to be better than the SEC lately. All right, so it looks like I see a question that's about to pop up from our friend Delina. Hi, Delina from US Bank. Once you identify a transaction as fraud, what steps do you take? So I'll let you go first. I'll add on.
Yeah, I mean, for us at that point, it's just a conversation that, hey, throughout our vetting process, there's inconsistent information, and we're just not able to proceed with this transaction. So, I don't want to say that we're vague, but we don't really go into a huge amount of detail at that point. It also probably depends on what point in the transaction it's occurring. I mean, is it really early on, or is it practically at the finish line? But generally, a dealership does not have to follow through on a deal if they're uncomfortable with the circumstances of it. So, that's typically, we just say, hey, there's inconsistencies in the information, and this isn't going to work for the lender.
Yeah. And I think most times you're usually in conversation with us about that if you've gone through any part of our process. And I do know what happens on our side is if we identify something as a fraud, we have kind of a cross-check feature where we will now be on the lookout for that same combination of characters anywhere else in our system, because what we found is odds are if they've curated something, they try to hit one place, they'll probably try to hit 10, right? In a certain amount of time in certain schemes. And so a lot of times we'll see that coming up 3 or 4 times. One thing I would just add is when dealers see it, if they could, if they're making sure they let us know that they spotted something and communicating, that informs our process, and it really helps other dealers, banks, and the overall consumer experience as well. So I think those are some key pieces to answer your question, Delina. All right, I see another question from Val as far as how do y'all do your electronic signatures with your offsites? You got wet sign docs, you got an in-person signing ceremony still to validate identity. How does that all get juggled?
Yeah, so we still have some wet signature documents that we have to use for the state of Ohio. Hopefully in the near future that will go away. And then we do have a specific e-sign process that we have to use for the banks that we work with and for our DMS. So I can't speak to, I don't know if we've done the video call option yet specifically in Mavsign. I know that our finance guys do a really good job of having these conversations with the clients, and sometimes they are FaceTime calls, but I don't know if they've used it within the app yet, but it's something that I think that they should explore, because obviously when you can get face-to-face, it's even better than just a phone call where all you can do is hear somebody's reaction. You can't necessarily see somebody's reaction. And it's good for them to see you. I think that the social media proves that when people can see you, it helps them to feel more comfortable with you, right? So
100%. And then, I think, I know y'all use, I believe, Dealer DMV. And so if it's out of state, you let them help you with the out of state docs. They get uploaded into Mav, and we go participate with them. So they're a good company to work with as well. So let's see. Any other questions from the chat? I think everybody's just Googling Mercedes Benzes right now, looking at cool cars. Thank you, Ricardo. Enjoy. Ricardo looks like a AMG prospect for you there, Doug. We'll have to go Look Ricardo up.
Thank you, Ricardo. Appreciate that. Yeah, if you ever are ready for another AMG, we've got you.
Yeah, good times. And curious, this is not just one dealership. This is part of Raffi Automotive Group, and
Yeah.
so is this kind of belief system kind of broadcast across Raffi Auto Group? How does that get cross-pollinated with the rest of the dealerships? Like, you got a Porsche store next door. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the Porsche store that we have next door, they feel, I mean, the same way that we do. And that brand especially, you're doing a ton of remote business, right? Because that's a brand that has a very specific buyer. The cars are usually bespoke or totally unique. So people are going to find those cars wherever they are. So that brand lends itself to a lot of remote business, a lot of out-of-state business. Now, as for the some of the newer additions to the portfolio for Raffi, those stores are up in Michigan. Again, I know that there's shared values across the whole platform, but even still within individual dealerships from one to the next, what I walked into when I got to North Olmsted was a culture of hustling and selling cars all over the country. So that is easier said than done for most. I mean, if you're going to make that shift, it takes time. Fortunately, I'm not going to take credit for that, right? I think that social media has enhanced our ability to do that, but it's just something that you've got to be comfortable with doing, and you've got to have processes in place. I mean, when I told you when I met you, I don't know a time that we didn't have Mavsign. So I'm of the belief that that was in place before I got here, right? Because there wasn't ever a time that I can remember where we weren't doing that. So that just speaks to what I stepped into, and now what I'm tasked with every day. As when you're the general sales manager, ultimately the buck stops with you for the sales performance of the store. And so if I know that that's the culture that we've always had, then yes, obviously our local people, we've got to take care of them and do all the things that we do for them. But our out of state people, we have to continue giving them that experience. That's like, we strive for Amazon, right? If you can buy something very easily on Amazon and you don't question it, why can't we do that for you with cars?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's a great comment Amy just made. Keeping human face-to-face interaction is best practice all around. Body language issues. I mean, I think, everybody that wants to get on socials and LinkedIn and talk about how AI is going to eliminate all the jobs, and you better, it's just, it's not a buzzword, but they're making it buzzy without contextualizing what AI should be doing for you. And so,
Sure.
yeah, I think we can all align on the fact that if you want to keep your gross profits high and you want to have great consumer experiences and you don't want to get defrauded, having the right people in the process is critical, not just today, and doesn't matter how far AI goes down the road, right? So at the end of the day, if we let AI decide, Skynet will just say people don't need to drive cars anymore. So we should just be aware.
No, totally. AI is, it's here, it's coming, it's going to continue to evolve, but I'm sure everybody knows the percentage is different depending on what study you're looking at, but let's call it at least 90% of communication is nonverbal, right?
Yep.
So, and I think people lose sight of that. When you're emailing or texting, 10% of the words themselves are how they communicate, right? The rest of it is body language, voice inflection, facial expressions, right? That is how a communication fully happens. So yes, being able to get on the phone, or better yet, video call with somebody, that's how you really know what the intent behind the message is, the reaction to what you said to them, right? It's hugely important. And AI will probably, as good as it is, never be able to fully replicate what a human can do.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to come out with the first digital hug. So see how that goes.
Right.
But, well, good. Well, I think on that note, we'll close this out, and we'll let Doug get back to his day. He's got a busy day closing out. Probably be on the phone with Mav later today, getting some orders back. So congratulations on your success and a great month, and thank you for being a great partner. For all of you listening and watching live, stay tuned. We have another episode coming up in 2 weeks. Have a bit of a pivot. I remember our first call, we had a partner KPA. This call, we've had Benzs and Bowties. in 2 weeks, we're actually going to have law enforcement on the call with us, and they're going to talk about how we work together with them. And we might actually get in some details of like, I think my theme song will be Bad Boys, what you're going to do kind of thing.
There you go.
That might be a little too funny. And we'll talk with some of my friends in law enforcement on how we work with them and cooperate and actually nab some bad guys. But we'll have some real life, kind of catch them stories. So this is great. Thank you all for attending. Doug, enjoy it as always. And I'll let everybody get back to your days. Have a great weekend. As I always say at the end, be a maverick. See ya.
Thanks, Rudy.